April. I'm not very good at ad-lib, so I've prepared something.
That's the best way.
Introduce yourself.
Right, so I'm Nemequene. I've been working with young, well, people know as Latin American, but what we call Nicantlaka, because we're not Latin. Latin are the people of Southern Europe.
That's right.
When Latinos came to our continent in 1492, they imposed their labels on us, they imposed their system on us, and they committed a genocide on our people. And the blood that we do have that is European has been raped into us, so we don't acknowledge it. So we call ourselves Nicantlaka, which is the Central American indigenous people used to say Nicantlaka as in us, the people of this land. So a 21-year-old student was visiting Bogota on April 9, 1948. It was the same day Jorge Eliezer Gaitan, a candidate to the Colombian presidency, was killed. That day, the poor, the downtrodden, the humiliated rose up in absolute anger and devastation. Jorge Eliezer Gaitan was indigenous. He looked like us, but most importantly, he represented us. He was tired of the elites taking advantage of us, spitting on us, exploiting us, and humiliating us. That day, the 21-year-old student who was in Bogota as part of a student conference, witnessing the anger of the masses, decided that he would join in an unsuccessful violent overthrowing of the government. It was the young Fidel Castro. Despite his privileged background, he risked his life by storming a police station and taking arms to support the struggle against the political elite in my country, Colombia. In the 68 years that have transpired since the fateful day in Bogota, Colombia has continued down the path of political elitism, capitalist greed, and exploitation. Fortunately, Fidel Castro was not amongst the thousands who died in that uprising. The many comrades who risked their lives and died that day for our struggle against injustice influenced him to develop his own revolutionary fire, his radical sense of justice, and his positively violent ideals for change. Despite the many comrades who died in that uprising, Castro's revolutionary spirit lived on. He lived on to refine his ideas, his revolutionary zeal, and continue to risk his life year after year to achieve a different world. Not only did he risk his life for his beloved Cuba, he risked his life for all of us, the oppressed, the humiliated, the colonized. The imperialists in this country and elsewhere will celebrate the death of our comrade, but though his body and his mind are no longer here with us, his ideas, his actions, his morality, his principles, his example lives on. The imperialists of Europe and North America can celebrate his death as they continue in their quest to keep us subjugated to this system. But Comrade Fidel gave us a concrete living example. He showed us that if we are willing to sacrifice ourselves for our oppressed nations, then we can defeat the parasitic claws that have been pierced deep into the flesh of our peoples. Fidel represents hope for those of us in Latin America, so-called Latin America. There's a popular phrase used throughout our continent that says that there will be millions of children going to sleep hungry tonight, that have no shoes with which to walk to school in the morning, that will die from the lack of medical attention, but none of them are in Cuba. Comrade Fidel gave an interview once in which he was asked when he was going to shave his beard off. His response was that his beard represented the unresolved revolutionary ideals of the Cuban people. That he would only cut his beard once he was satisfied that the revolution had been successful. He died with his beard. Sorry. There is much work to complete in Cuba, in so-called Latin America and in Africa. Although some of us are unable to grow our beards, and I certainly can't.
It's coming.
We are nonetheless able to grow and develop our sense of love for our homeland, for our oppressed peoples, and for the millions of children who are and will live in the reality of a world in which capitalist parasites in Europe, North America, and elsewhere will exploit them for their bodies, their labor, and their lands. In a world where parasitic capitalism is still the dominant system, we have to become as radical as that young Fidel in Bogota who took up arms for the oppressed Colombian people, as radical as the young Fidel who, when on trial, held his head high and told his persecutors that history would absolve him, as radical as the young Fidel traveling on the Grandma from Mexico to Cuba with 82 revolutionaries, as radical as the Fidel who armed himself and took to the mountains, as radical as the Fidel who entered Havana as a symbol for hope for our people, and as radical as the Fidel who died with his beard that represented those same ideals he fought for as a young man. He lived and died a revolutionary. For those of us living here in London in the belly of the imperialist capitalist beast, we must ask ourselves, what would a radical like Fidel do in a place like this? Would he join Momentum and support Jeremy Corbyn in his quest to become Prime Minister? Would he join the anti-cuts protest? Would he join the NGOs to fight for human rights and the environment? As an exemplary anti-capitalist and anti-imperialist, and above all a third worldist, he would have done none of the above. He would have sought to resolve the problems of the most oppressed in this world system. And although we suffer in this country as second-class citizens, fighting to maintain and better their system here is the same as to condemn our people and our homeland to indefinite imperialist exploitation back home. The economy of this country, even if it is used to better the conditions of people here, must necessarily be parasitic. Fidel Castro would have urged us to fight for our homelands, for the colonized who are at the bottom of the world's capitalist hierarchy. Let's avoid the Western-centric issues that we get caught up with and that the left in this country try and recruit us for. Fidel Castro and the comrades in Cuba as a whole demonstrate that capitalism is weakened from the peripheries and not from the centers. It is our people and our homelands who maintain this system, and it will be our people and our homelands who destroy this system. Not through asking for rights and public services from our oppressor, but by fighting the capitalist imperialist system itself and pushing it over the edge to its inevitable death. Comrade Fidel did not want his legacy to be one in which he was made into a cult hero, a statue, the name on a road or a street. Comrade Fidel's legacy will live on in our actions, our writings, our ideas, our propaganda, and our finances aimed at raising up the struggle of the most radical anti-colonialists in the diaspora and in the homelands. Que viva Fidel! Uhuru!
Viva!